Hi, welcome to today's video diary for Finding My Way with Pi, Purpose, Intention, and Emotion. I am Pi, and I have to share something that's funny, this goofy mistake that I just made. I just recorded an entire video diary curiously examining this technique of appreciative inquiry and how narrating our own story or how we interpret our own lives is so powerful for the reality that we experience in our lives. I just recorded this 15-minute thing and I felt so good about it and it was so neat to reflect on and just go through it. Except I didn't record it. I totally made a mistake and the button didn't work. And I talked and there you go. Oops. So I'm gonna laugh at myself. 15 minutes here, but guess what? It wasn't wasted. I still went through the process of thinking about this. So I'm gonna try to recap it, I guess, real quick, but I actually don't have time to spend another 15 minutes here because we have 4th of July celebrations that we'll be doing with some family. So in a nutshell, the way you narrate your story, the way you think about your life, the thoughts that you have in your head when you think about yourself and how good you feel about your life, those are so powerful in shaping how you experience your life. It's so powerful in shaping how you go out and live and what your reality is. Now, do you have 100% control over reality? No. Reality happens out there, outside of us, and inside of us, looking out. It's both. It simply is. So there are things that happen out there that you don't have control over, and then there are things that happen inside that you do have control over, and one of those things are your narration, how you think of your life, how you interpret your life. Here are some examples. An example just real quick. So I had left my corporate leadership position about 3 months ago and, just wanted to rediscover myself. I needed to heal after experiencing burnout after a couple of decades in the corporate world. And I really wanted to shift my focus and to pivot. I wanted to start from something that I'm passionate about and something that I love instead of just simply growing up in a business and, leading to unfortunately, eventually, things that I just did not enjoy and not necessarily aligned with my strengths. Now, when I left my corporate job, I embarked on this journey of healing and transformation, and there was some deep emotional healing that I needed to do, and that was a process for me. And as I'm thinking about venturing out into this world where I want to go create a community of healing, of whole being able to teach others about whole being and emotional wellness. I want to be a speaker. I want to be a writer, research in this area and how organizations can help cultivate whole being for their people for the long haul, right? For the long run. This is not about short-term profit. This is about being in it for the long game. Things like that. And then I started getting in my own head and interpreting my own self as I'm not yet an expert on this. And, wouldn't I have to have a bunch of things before I even start, the credentials, the money to get started, all of this stuff to get started. And I kind of, scare myself before I even begin. So this technique of appreciative inquiry goes like this. This is how I applied it. It was identifying a change or an area where I want to improve. And for me, that's getting out there and being a speaker on this topic, leading workshops, creating a community, being a writer, all of those things. And so what that meant was, there are elements in that domain that I could look at. What successes do I already have? One of them is writing. One of them is public speaking. One of them maybe in some sense would be how do I have a vision of something that I want to create. How do I get from the idea to the execution and realization of it? And so taking a step back and reflecting back on my life in those elements of that domain, what successes have I already had? I was able to identify quite a few successes that I have already had in those domains. I'm a wonderful public speaker. I give amazing presentations, requested to give presentations throughout my career, invited to give presentations to new leaders, I mentor women. As far as writing goes, I could always write. It used to be a joke that I could write a book or a novel in emails, and now I'm seeing I can write novels for real. Outside of the corporate context, now I can write from my heart. I write poetry. There's a lot of poetry drops on the video diary. And I have led so many change initiatives or creating new things in my career, and I know the process for how to do that. I know how to go from the idea to the design phase into the execution phase, and I know what that looks like. I even know how to track and measure progress. I have so many successes in these different elements already. I can now pick up and apply. And so now, dreaming where I want to go with this, that's where I tap into my full potential. And then that execution of it, the actual action piece of it, that is where the magic happens. So that is the process that I'm working through right now. And just to tie it all together in a neat little bow, that is the narration. That is the interpretation I have of my story and how this appreciative inquiry technique helps me change how I interpret my life in this phase. It's generative rather than diminishing, if that makes sense. So where I would have all these fears, or I've got to have XYZ before I even get started, and that old narration and view of my reality has now turned into, I've already had all of these successes, real seeds planted in reality, real things that have happened in my past, seeds that I can now nourish, nurture to help flourish. Totally changes my perspective and my interpretation of my life. Also gives me a whole lot of energy and optimism and hope and motivation, and I'm excited to get started. I'm excited, ready to be curious and to relax with this flow and experience it in this next phase of my life. I hope that this example is demonstrative of how the words you use to talk to yourself, the story you tell yourself, how you interpret what's going on is so incredibly powerful for how you actually experience your life. But what's more, the actions and the steps that you will choose to take, it impacts your choices. It's very, very, very powerful technique. Highly recommend. So thanks for being with me on this journey. I'm so glad that you're here, and I hope it helps you too. I'll see you tomorrow.